Please check out our sponsors NordVPN for the best in online security. It's the best VPN on the market, and you can try it risk-free now with a 30-day money-back guarantee by visiting nordvpn.com/heartandhand. That's nordvpn.com/heartandhand, and it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Hello everyone and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar and as always I will be your host, and I welcome two guests to discuss the match at Pittodrie yesterday and to look ahead to our huge upcoming trip to Bilbao. First of all is Alan Bradley. Hello Alan.
Hi David, how you doing? All right, yeah?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, my man. Very much looking forward to Thursday night, as I'm sure is our other guest, Cammy Bell.
Hello David, hello Alan, hello listeners. Yes, very excited for Thursday. It should prove to be a really interesting and hopefully fortuitous game.
Right, yesterday now, I'll be honest, from Friday morning through to Sunday morning, I was very much in the camp of, look, just stick out any old team, rest everyone that's played or going to play on Thursday. Don't worry too much about it. The game doesn't particularly matter. And I stuck with that when I saw the team line, and I stuck with it right into about half an hour into the game when I was raging. And that it's always a fun thing to me when theory and reality meet. And I think this was very much a case for me personally on that. First of all, though, on the decision, I'll start with you on this one, Cammy. It was the right decision, in my opinion. There were times during the match it could be a bit frustrating when some of the fringe players demonstrated why they've been fringe players. But, we look, all the caveats that should go in. We want to win every game. We know we do, but Rangers, all of that stuff. It is all true. Equally, though, I would have been apoplectic had someone who's going to play on Thursday played and picked up an injury. So for me, it was the sensible move in the bigger picture.
100%. I think Colin and I said it when we were doing the car pod after Thursday night. Happy to send up a team of 14-year-olds up there as long as it gets enough players, some rest and recovery. The added complexity, David, of playing, a good healthy chunk of the game, 90 minutes pretty much, with 10 men on Thursday, obviously would have taken some more energy from that as well. So yeah, I was the same as you when I saw the lineup. I thought, right, it makes sense. I've used this word a lot across the course of this season, but for me it would have felt like an opportunity to some of those fringe players, as you say, to say, I want to be more seriously taken in terms of being featured, and this is a chance to do so. The manager made reference on Thursday night that it was going to be pretty threadbare, and I think we all knew that. So, yeah, I was happy with the lineup. I think it was absolutely the right decision. I think he had one eye on who he expected to be able to try and rely upon that he could bring off the bench, and so it was proven.
Alan?
Yeah, very much the same. Walking out on Thursday, it was, that's right, we're playing Aberdeen. I was of that mind too. I really don't care. They can rest as many, play young laddies. That would be all right. Heart and head this time rather than heart and hand. Needless to say, as you said, David, once the actual lineup was announced, suddenly that sensible head, the heart kind of kicked in and went, hold on a wee minute, looks a bit top heavy in terms of people up front, how are we going to defend and so on. And as the game went on, there was the occasional bit of what have we done. But even now, David, absolutely convinced we've got to do that, because Thursday is probably one of our most important games since the Euro run to the final. Okay, putting aside some of the domestic cup things. So, no, absolutely the right decision. Obviously, this will go through. It actually came out okay. I know I never ever want to drop points and so on, but like you two guys too, my biggest disappointment was there were people coming in there who perhaps were sitting on the bench previously saying, I'm due a turn. They come on, and a lot of them, if anything, they've actually gone further down the pecking order. And I think that was the disappointing one. In the end, obviously, when we made changes in the second half, we kind of get through it. But definitely right decision, and it just puts us in the best possible position anyway for this game on Thursday, David, yeah.
Yeah, Bilbao rested 9 players at the weekend, so it's quite clear they will have a deeper squad than us.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much doubt about that. Financial resources being what they are for teams in top 5 leagues, but even so, it was interesting the players who survived from the other night. Proper, who isn't going to play, and Kelly, and there was no point dropping him out. I mean, you can't say he needed a rest. He's just into the side. So it kind of made sense on that front. But as Alan said, it led to a very unusual looking side with what was, on first glance, a side that had 4 wingers in it. Like Alan, I was a wee bit, is this a 3-1-6? But Bajrami played centre midfield, and 2 of the wingers were asked to operate as wing backs, Finley Curtis and Ross McCausland. And it's fair, Cammy, to say that one of them fared a lot better in the unusual role than the other one. Now, we'll come to the more senior members of the team in a minute. I'm just going to start off with this. Ross McCausland has come into the side at a difficult time last season and managed to play his way into becoming a member of the first team squad. He's found minutes hard to come by this season and has been, I think that was his first start since Fraserburgh yesterday. So he hasn't been getting those opportunities. And I think the jury was out on him as a Rangers player. He's a Rangers fan, so that will always buy you, I think, a little bit more time from the supporters. However, he just doesn't look to have the quality. And we've seen this before. Young players, they burst through and they get their opportunity and they do well. That's not the hardest part, believe it or not. All my years watching Rangers, and go back, Alan, to guys like Sandy Robertson or even Gary McSwiggan or whatever, It's not about getting into the first team. It's about then staying in the first team, and then it's about making sure that you actually become an established first team player. Most of our youth products in the last 30, 40 years go this way, where they start off okay, and then they don't develop, and you have to not only develop, but develop quickly. And then once teams have had a look at them, they kind of figure them out. The last example of this, Cammy, that jumps to mind with me is Glenn Middleton, and I think that this is what's happened to Ross McCausland as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't want to sound too harsh on him, because I want him to do well, and I think as Rangers fans we're quite compassionate, I think, towards some of our youth players, because we do want to see them come through, and some of our best players have been able to come through the system, current manager included. The issue, as you say, is being able to sustain that involvement within the first team selection, whether or not it's starting or as a sub. McCausland has had opportunities, I think that's fair to say. I think that I suppose what I'm more concerned about at the moment is that if he's taken out of the team for a good wee while, and then he's brought back in, is he good to go? Is he able to come into it? And I do understand that, as you rightly said at the start there, Davey, he was playing in a position not entirely well known to him. But the issue with this still comes back to what I think we've seen from McCausland far too often, which is just poor decision making. It looks like at times it could be a level above him, as if he's not quite there yet. I don't know if that's playing at this level or indeed playing for Rangers. I don't know if his future lies elsewhere, that he would go on and shine in a team that hasn't been in the situations that we've been in, where we've been desperate for success. We've had a fair to middling run of important games that have kind of come our way, and then you get into yesterday, which by and large doesn't mean a whole lot in terms of pressure. The only thing that was on the line yesterday was really just making sure that there was no key injuries. So whilst there was pressure there because he's involved and he started, and he's playing in a position which he would not have necessarily thought that it was going to be his first choice, but he's still involved, and that's where I would have said that seems like it could be more suited for him. And just pretty disappointing all in. Yeah,
I mean, he had a terrible game even before the yellow card, Alan, the second yellow. First one, I think, is a wee bit harsh. The referee seemed to point about the pitch to a number of fouls, but he hadn't made as many as the ref seemed to point out to. But the second one is a yellow all day. And you have to know, he's young, but he's not a kid. You have to know if you're on a yellow, you don't dive in. You just can't. There's absolutely no point taking the risk. And it is a yellow. I mean, I don't think any of us have got any complaints about the second one, but it's decision making, and to be honest, it kind of paints a wider picture of his time at Rangers. This is the problem. This what has not developed for him in his time at Rangers. And to be honest, when I look at Ross, what's hard enough for the rest? I just think it's ability. I just, it's harsh to say, but I just don't think he's got the ability to become a first team player at Rangers.
No, and I think we've seen over the period, and as Cammy said, and yourself too, and I suppose being Rangers fans too, obviously not Billy Simpson before my time, but even the likes of Jimmy Nick and people, John McQuillan, people from obviously Ulster as well, you really want the guy to do well. You're giving him, so much kind of time, but he's had wee piecemeal bits in and out. But the only one wee bit of development he had early on was, remember that time in Europe where he got really caught out, and then he learned to play a wee bit more in terms of coming back and covering. But since then, he's not gone up at all. Any kind of glimpses I've seen of him, and I don't know, as you say, I think the quality, I don't think he's got enough anyway. It looked as if his kind of head had kind of gone with that stupid challenge as well. But the other thing too, if you've got a decent level of quality, okay, although your primary roles being, playing down the right-hand side as a kind of winger, you still should have some kind of footballing sense and to be able to come back. And I think if we do the opposite, if we look at Finley Curtis, there's a young lad, what was his first start? And I know at times, obviously the guy kind of got by him a few times, Morris, down there, but he seemed to have that more, I don't know, the intelligence in terms of kind of going back, looking. Wee Ross just looked there as if he was out of his depth. So I really don't know. I don't know where he'll go from here. He'll probably go maybe elsewhere, maybe to kind of English Championship or whatever, or somewhere, but it just doesn't look, sadly, to me, to have the quality or other attributes really to be a regular with us now, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it can happen, right?
We're
not all blessed with that level of talent. You need to be very good to make it at a club like Rangers. And but I know exactly what you mean with the head loss yesterday. He didn't know it looked as though you knew if he was coming or going. Curtis on the other side, and by the way, but there will come a point with Curtis as well, happens to all young players after the first kind of flush, the excitement, the adrenaline of being in the first team.
He'll dip a wee bit, won't he? And then it'll be back.
Then we'll need to see if he can do it as well. But he's at that kind of earlier stage, the breakthrough stage. And Cammy, Alan touched upon a good point with Curtis yesterday in that he was up against a good winger, by the way, somebody who's confident and playing well. And yes, he got skinned a couple of times because he was going to get skinned a couple of times, right? But he never let it bother him. And what he did was he made sure that, okay, you might go by me, but I'm going to be here to make the challenge, and then I'm going to get back and try and make sure I block the cross, etc. And you saw that sort of dogged determination. And then when he got shoved a bit further forward in the second half, he got the flick on for the Egerman goal. And generally, you began to see wee bits from him there. So again, though, I'd almost be, if I was in the coaching team, kind of maybe saying, look, there's a lot of cautionary tales here. You've got into the first team, and that's great. And now you'll hopefully get a few more minutes. I dare say between now and the end of the season domestically, you will. But you haven't made it yet. This is not, this is one of the challenges on the road to where you want to go. It's not the end game.
Yeah, and for the Aberdeen goal, he's tracking his man well. He just fails to stop the cross when able to come in. But I didn't actually blame him too much for that, because, as we've just spoken about, I think if he decides to bring him down at that stage, then it's going to be a booking anyway. So he stayed on his feet and tried to track him. What I really liked about Curtis yesterday, David, was I just thought he looked, pretty much everywhere. It looked like he covered a hell of a lot of the park. I've not seen his heat map or stats and any of that guff, but almost every single time I saw him, he just looked like as if he was going into the right positions, which is some really good awareness. He knew when to be able to try and drop back, and I think part of that is probably listening to what the manager has been asking for, which is, a raise in tempo, a bit more work ethic, a bit more running, everything else as well. And to be fair to Ferguson, that's exactly what he said when he talked about the young players that he knew that he could trust. He's spoken before about Bailey Rice, but he has mentioned about, he knows that he'll get that from the young players, and he certainly did. The Egerman goal, it was disallowed. He stays on his feet well, even though he's been pressured. Yeah, he's very unlucky with the fact the ball just, I'll be honest with you, I've seen it a few times. I'm still in the fence a little bit, but if it's not out, it's as near as damn it. So obviously it gets disallowed. But again, like you say, that's what you want from him, is just hard work and to keep learning. And I thought you saw some of that incrementally through the game, where he didn't let his head go down, as you say, but also he started to kind of warm himself into it in terms of following his runners, but also knowing when to be able to get forward and be able to try and get up there. Plus, let's be honest, it's not the most aligned of Rangers teams. It's pretty disjointed, so he had to be able to improvise a wee bit of that himself, I'm fairly sure. And yeah, like you say, it was pretty positive overall.
So yeah, I mean that's dealt with too, the kind of the youth products on the side now. I have to say, in the first half, the players that disappointed me, Alan, were the likes of Cortez, Danilo, Bajrami. That I didn't think they looked like they were likely to take advantage of the start they had been given. I suppose in mitigation, that you would say, well, Cortez, he's not played a lot of football. He's coming back into the side. You could say the same for Danilo, but I was most disappointed with it. I didn't feel that we got the work rate that I would be showing. Even if I was playing badly, I'd like to think that I'd be going, right, I'll show the manager, though, that I'm giving absolutely everything. I thought it looked like the kind of performance from guys who are like, all right, so I'm in the second team, am I? And it's a lot of money went on these guys. Bajrami, to be fair to him, did improve second half and was actually playing quite well when he was substituted. But I thought in the first half, all through the side, to be honest, Cammy mentioned they were disjointed, and I suppose that's going to happen with that many changes. But basics were not getting done. And I have to say, by the way, by the second half, Aberdeen basics were not being done either. This was a woeful game of football. It was low quality, high on drama, but it was a very low quality game of football. But yeah, I mean, I just thought the way we used the ball in the first half, and to me, the work rate just wasn't there when we went forward.
No, you're right. You're right. I think I put in the chat as well at one point, could we just string 3 passes together? It was so frustrating. And as you say, even if we put aside the work rate, I mean, people like kind of Cortez and Danilo, for goodness sake, you don't just lose your first touch. I mean, it was embarrassing. And if anyone as a neutral had looked at it and hadn't known, they would be sort of it was coming off them. They would just look so poor. As you say as well, I just feel the kind of attitude. I mean, Danilo, I know he gets wee bits and bobs, but it never really looks, I don't know, was it 6 million quid or whatever it would be? Cortez, I know we've committed, David, to, is it 4 and a bit? I think that's going to give us a real challenge as well. We need to wait and see what we can do during the kind of close season, but they're really disappointing. First half, second half, as you say, a lot better of it. And Bajrami did. He actually played no bad. I think the last time when we were up at Pittodrie and he scored up there, he came on to a wee bit of a game. But no, disappointing. Proper as well. If you go to the back, I mean, what about the goal, Davey? And he's like standing, just pointing. He knows that nobody's picked up the chap, but he's like pointing to somebody else. Yeah. So that was really frustrating.
Which is a pet hate of mine as, an amateur player or as a football watcher. I hate that.
You go and do it, Davey, and then once you've cleared it, you shout and you say, I got that.
Where were you? You should have been. Yes, after you've cleared it. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And it's not the first time. I don't think I'm being harsh here, actually. Rather, Proper just is not going to be a Rangers centre-half. He's one that we absolutely have got to move on in the summer. And it's got nothing to do with the red card tackle the other night. He's just not up to what we need. He may have attributes, but he doesn't show them. And that yesterday was something that we have seen before, which is that, look, there's a guy unmarked. Well, you're not marking anybody. Go and deal with it. And yeah, I really don't like to see that. And even in, as I say, when I've been playing games of a lot less importance than this myself, if I saw a guy doing that, then words would be had, put it that way. But yeah, so we go a goal down and then we lose the man and then we go a second down. Now, the first goal was obviously the free kick. And Cammy, I mentioned this yesterday. I think that we have become very conditioned to goalkeeping errors lately and looking for them. And I'm not sure this... It might go down as could have done better. I think that's fair. But I wouldn't put it down as an absolute howler because I think it's a terrific free kick. He does still have to cover the cross, Kelly. He can't just go, I'm going to gamble he's going to shoot, because otherwise the cross comes in and you're stuck in your line for a ball you really should have come and taken. And to be honest, I think Clarkson just does him with a bit of quality. The counter argument, though, is he did get a full hand to it. He should be keeping it out. But I think sometimes you've just got to say, do you know what? We got done there. That was just a bit of quality.
Yeah, I agree. It's obvious from his position that he is anticipating a cross, being able to come in. The ball's hit with a great bit of pace and whip, and he's positioned it beautifully. It really is postage stamp stuff. And he tries to recover. I've heard other arguments about, well, he does get a hand to it. Is a hand not strong enough? To be honest with you, I think he's caught in the hop a wee bit, and he tries to cover the ground and get something on it. It's just a great free kick. I don't really assign too much blame to Kelly for that. I suppose the other issue is as well, he has to be able to keep an eye on what's happening if that cross comes in, because by and large, would you trust that defence? I probably wouldn't. So there's an element of it. And listen, he did it plenty against Bilbao, where he's more than comfortable being able to come off his line and catch the ball.
Did it yesterday as well.
Yeah, he did.
4 or 5 times.
And it's something that certainly Jack Butland hasn't been great at. But I think, you've surmised it perfectly, David. He's beaten with a great bit of quality. And, the only thing theoretically he could have done is taken a couple of steps to his right-hand side just to be able to cover a wee bit more of the ground than he had to scramble to get to. But yeah, I don't really have too many complaints with it. It's just a really, really well hit free kick.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been a hell of a save if he'd got to it.
Yeah, so it would have been. Yeah.
It was the Madison one, David, wasn't it? It was just the exact same as the Madison free kick, a cracker.
It was very similar. Yeah. And I know our podder, Mr. Martin Ramsey, he's one of his pet hates is the fact that nobody can just score a goal anymore. It always has to be a goalkeeper error, according to people analysing it. So yeah, maybe he'll feel he could have done a bit better. I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out. But to me, I just thought that's just a brilliant free kick. Second goal, though, as Cammy alluded to, Alan, more defensive calamity at Rangers, disorganisation, which, again, it's an unusual team, but still proper man-watching, because you can see him, he's pointing to him, but not dealing with it. Ball come in, Tavernier and Curtis, I think, could do better, definitely could do better, but once the ball comes in, though, we're in bother, good finish, and it looked a mountain at that point, 2-0 down.
I was thinking, David, I know it's the heart and head thing. Obviously, my heart was going, oh my goodness, it's going to be 4. I really felt the way things had been going. Obviously wasn't, but no, you're right. It was just so frustrating as well, wasn't it? Just the way how many of those goals now, people just cutting it back and just people not anticipating. I would imagine if you'd John Suter in there, he'd probably thrown himself, wouldn't he? Or, try to block something. But I don't know. It's just they seem to be in slow motion. Later on in the game as well, there were things dropping in the box. Again, David, they don't seem to be in the front foot, And I don't think you could blame the goalkeeper for that one. Anyway,
no, not at all.
The guy just put it away, Yeah.
It was perfectly placed finish, back across the keeper, exactly the way you're supposed to do it.
Uh-huh.
Rangers did rally just before half-time, might have had a goal back. Curtis, as Cammy says, gets to the byline and he cuts it back. Header saved by the goalkeeper, but there's Igaman to put it away. However, the linesman then flagged for the ball going out of play. He is allowed to do that, by the way, folks. Some people said, I thought it was only offsides that they can delay the flag. No, any goal-scoring opportunity, linesmen are told to keep the flag down until it has completed. And then, so he was within his rights to do that. It's been a fairly recent argument in Scottish football, Cammy. Does the whole ball cross the line? I don't think you can definitively say it does or it doesn't. It looks out to my naked eye. However, the overhang of the ball, there is a possibility that it's still on the line. And unfortunately, in those circumstances, for us this time, you need to go with the on-field decision. And I can't sit here and say, oh no, they shouldn't do that when I moan about it a lot. I'm a great believer in this. See if you can't tell after like a minute of looking at something, go with the on-field call. Mm-hmm. So I'd be a bit hypocritical to turn around and complain about it now. There's a legit argument that says that the linesman's just guessing, but then the linesman therefore has just been guessing for 140 years so far on situations like that. I do think though that surely there is some technology that can tell you this. I mean, they have it at Wimbledon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it would need to be side on rather than, the Hawkeye top down that we see for goal line technology to see whether or not the entire circumference of the ball is out of play. But I mean, I know we're not going to make a song and dance out of it because we're normal people and that lot aren't. But the whole point of this argument came up obviously when it happened to Celtic recently. I agree with you. As I said before, I think that the ball is out of play. I think that the width just looks like it doesn't go in our favour, which I'm fine with, because these things can happen. But you're right, if we could bring something that does that, but it's how far does it go, Davey? Do we do it not just along the bylines? Do we do it along the side of the park and everything else? And then we're talking about throw-ins and all the rest of it and stuff as well. But yeah, and I agree with you. I despise this rule of linesmen keeping their flag down until the play has gone out, purely just because. But I'll contextualise that. I despise it when there's clear margins of offside. Then it should go up. If it's in line or it looks pretty marginal, then absolutely keep it down. But yeah, as you say, I think I'm pretty sure that when you make the decision on field, then you've got to stand by it. There's very little we can do about it.
Yep, very much so. And we did though use that at the start of the second half. Manager made a couple of changes, and then we got back into it at the start of the second half. Long ball played up, good flick on by Curtis. He's not the biggest, but he went, he competed, he got it.
Yeah.
And then, see, this is why I want Egaman playing as the number 9, okay? That isn't a chance when the ball drops to him. It's not like you could say, oh, he's missed it or whatever. If he has to collect the ball, beat his man, and get the shot away, and he does it all perfectly, and he's done it before. I think we've all seen him score that goal now 4 or 5 times. And for me, he has the ability to make things happen, and he's also a more reliable finisher than Dessers. This isn't a bash Dessers thing, because he plays a crucial part in the goal, albeit he doesn't score it. But it's his run and movement in a packed area, and we'll come to that later. But it's a special finish, Alan, by a special footballer.
It's the Egaman shuffle. I don't know if there's a song there, or the Egaman wriggle, but what happens as well is these defenders, you saw them even on Thursday night when he came on, and he is so kind of cumbersome, come awkward, but he's a handful, and they don't.
There's 3 of them round him.
And it's just,
they should deal with it.
As you say, and it's like the Parkhead one as well. It's like, and we all know, we're like, when he got the ball, I'm going, here we go. He's trying this wee nutmeg thing again. Obviously, it kind of comes off, and then he puts it away. And the other thing too, it wasn't they talk about Dessers just hit it hard, hit the target. He actually put it by the keeper, which showed, I think, a lot of class as well in terms of the way he finished it. But I'm with you. At times, okay, he doesn't do the run the channel as well, but he's got great attributes round about that box. All he's thinking is, if I can just get a wee space here, if I can, get a shot in. So, an absolutely brilliant goal. And I mean, put it this way, he ain't going to need 10 chances to score a goal, Davey. If you give him a couple of, I reckon he could potentially be kind of 1 in 3, 1 in 4, with good ones, yeah.
Yeah, he's more of a placer. Dessers is more a power guy, whereas he'll kind of look for the gap and try and put it in there.
And he uses his weight too, David. I mean, these are big, strong defenders, and
it's hard to
they bounce off at him as well.
Yeah, it's a low centre of gravity, I think, is the term in football for it. But you're absolutely. What that means is he's got a very strong backside. And you try knocking him off the ball, it's not just as easy as it looks, as the Aberdeen defenders became the latest to find out. I think the timing of this goal, Cammy, was absolutely crucial in terms of the match, because I think it affected the psychology of the match. Aberdeen, who were 2-0 up against 10 men, absolutely cruising. Then a wee bit of doubt in the mind. They're like, it's only 2-1. Do we go for this, or do we, sit in, play our passes and whatnot? Now, this is not to say they didn't have chances, because they did, but I think had they gone here, I'm like Alan at 2-0, I was going, this could be 4 or 5. And I think had Aberdeen gone hell for leather at the second half, it could have been, it certainly would have been more difficult than it was. But I think they sort of get caught between, right, do we fully go for this, or do we kind of sit back and just control the match? And in the end, kind of did neither.
It's that, do you defend the 2-1, or do you go for the 3-1? And yeah, you're right, the timing of the goal, and I hate this phrase, but it came at a really good time for us right at the start of the second half. Some subs, obviously, which you mentioned that Ferguson had to make, because some of the players that had to go for they were pretty ineffectual. It's an interesting one, because given the fact that, again, like you say, all we care about is just being able to make sure that everyone's injury free, and you're a goal up, and until that point you had a 2-goal advantage, and that Aberdeen are obviously chasing third place. I'm very, very surprised as to why they didn't go more gung-ho, even with the man advantage, just being able to try and stretch us out a little bit, maybe even invite Rangers to come on so that they can try and chase the ball and then play it around us. It just didn't work for Aberdeen in that regard. You're right, they did have chances, obviously the Nisbet disallowed goal, which I'm sure we'll talk about, for the handball, another couple of chances that they had as well, but they weren't anywhere near clinical enough with this, and I think that this goal for Egeman plants the seed of doubt, and I genuinely don't think they managed to get away from that. We did have another couple of chances as well, of course, before we get into the equaliser. But yeah, Aberdeen, I think they should have had the game dead and buried, and this goal, I think, really, really upset that game plan.
It certainly did. Now, there was a lot of kind of to and fro, and as I say, very low quality in that second half. But the incident then that Aberdeen fans, I'm sure, are pointing to, and certainly a few of them complained to me last night. I'm not quite sure why, as if they would think I would care, but the free kick that led to a goal. Now, first things for the disallowed goal. First of all, the ball into the box. This is something we've seen too often from Rangers: panic and then not reacting to a second ball. But from Aberdeen fans, just to clear this up, and I'll let Cammy, who's a qualified referee, tell me if I've got anything wrong. The ball into the box comes in, and some Aberdeen fans were saying, well, it hits Dessers on the arm. And I'm like, right, well, that's debatable. But if it does, his arms are down by his side, so not a penalty. Then in the Stramash, it bounces up and it hits Nisbet on the arm, and then he finishes. So I said, right, so if you use your arm at all, or it hits, not use, but hits your arm or your hand in the act of scoring a goal, then it's disallowed. Had it hit him on the arm and his arm was in the actual position and then someone else scored, then it might not be the case. But it was cut and dry in his case. If your arm is by your side as you do that, it's irrelevant. If your arm is by your side as you're defending the same incident, then it is relevant. Does that mean that we've got two interpretations of the same rule, whether you're defending or attacking? Yes, it does. Don't blame me. I'm not IFAB. I don't make the rules. Right, but these are the rules, Cammy, as I understand them. So had the ball came in and Dessers is standing with his arm at his side and it hit him on the arm, the ref would go, arm in an actual position, no penalty. If it then bounces off him, hits Nisbet on the arm in the exact same, he's got his arm in the exact same position, drops to his feet and he finishes it, the ref would go, hit his arm, that's not a goal. Am I correct?
Yeah, 100%. But I think to simplify that, if you watch it again, I mean, I'm not convinced, and I've seen it a few times, that Dessers does hit it necessarily with his arm, because he's mid-jump and his arms are literally planted into his sides. When you look at Nisbet, even just before the initial contact for the ball comes in, he raises both of his arms and then the ball hits off his upraised left arm and kills it stone dead. It literally drops and then he's able to smash it in. So there's zero doubt he gains an advantage from where his arms are, because it takes all the flight and all the power out of the ball and just more or less just drops at his feet. So I'm not really too sure as to why there's any real bones of contention there. But Davey, how many times have we talked about this? It's I don't like the law, but it's the law. And until, as you say, authorities change it, then sadly, we have to live with it. I don't think Nisbet has any idea what's happening, because, to use that old Scottish phrase, it's an absolute stramash. We are trying to clear it. They are trying to get it goalward. I understand, for what it's worth, as to why Nisbet is trying to almost move his body in case someone does get a contact on it, and he wants to try and move out the way to stop, to avoid blocking the shot. But that's where we are now with this law, and as I say, until they change it, we're all going to have to live with it. And it comes out in the wash, Davey. We've all had, I think every club now has had circumstances where they've either been disadvantaged with it, or they've gained the advantage from it in equal measure. So until it changes, we have to be able to deal with it. It's why VAR is here, and we always tend to, especially on here, we always tend to try and look at it in the optic of, would I want that given if it was for me? And if I'm being honest with you, if we had got that situation and we'd got a goal from it, I think we'd have counted ourselves incredibly lucky. So these things happen, and it's just what we have to deal with at the moment until anything changes.
Yeah, I mean, Alan, there's two older codgers here. The handball rule now is a fucking mess. Like, there's no doubt about it. They've tried to simplify it and they've ended up creating this absolute pig's ear of a thing where you have different interpretations in different competitions. For
Davey,
example, the penalty awarded against us the other night would most likely not have been awarded in the UK because we have a higher threshold. So it's just a mess. But the one thing that it's clear on is if you're the guy who scores the goal and you handle it just before you do it, the goal gets ruled out. So again, as you know, Cammy mentioned there, we can talk about the rules and whether or not you want them changed. But what you can't say is that goal should have stood, because under the current rules, it absolutely shouldn't.
Absolutely. And as a jumpers for goalpost guy, as you keep telling me, what was wrong with, did the man play the ball or did the ball play the man in it? Do you know what I mean? It was simple, wasn't it?
We seemed to survive for a number of years, yes.
Obviously, I don't remember all of them, but quite a few of them.
Yeah.
But there didn't seem to be that same kind of debate. I mean, if somebody hits the ball quite, and it's going quite quickly and it's quite near and the ball hits them, you just go fine. If the guy puts his hand out and plays it, and that was the way. But as you say, it did seem to work. But hey, what do I know? I'm just shouting at clouds now and then, David.
Well, I mean, I saw one at the weekend. Cody of Leicester, a penalty was given, and I don't think anyone in their right mind would argue, because he moves his arm up towards the ball. You can see him now. It's involuntary. I don't think he decides, I'm going to handle this. But you see the movement and you go, aye, right, fair enough. And everyone, I think, looked at that and went, that's a Stonewall penalty kick. So it doesn't have to be as confusing. But, yep. And, of course, though, Aberdeen still have got only themselves to blame. Rangers' time was ticking down, and very much was ticking down. I very, very specifically remember looking at the clock, and it was 94-48 when the ball got back to Liam Kelly, and I thought, we're done now. There's 12 seconds left. But Hadji plays a ball over the top, and this is where Dessers does deserve some praise. It's everyone's in the Aberdeen half. Like every player bar Kelly is in the Aberdeen half, just about. There's no space. And yet he finds some.
He times it perfectly, doesn't he?
Times it, and he's onside and he gets in. And he is actually unlucky with his shot, to be fair, because it's a really good effort. Beats the keeper, smashes the inside of the post. At that point, I have to admit, I let out a loud swearing and thought, no, I can't. And then Rangers stayed calm, worked it to Hadji, and it's a magnificent strike.
How good was Yefty as well? Because he could have just lobbed one back in, but Yefty actually looking over sees Hadji, plays it to him. It was perfect, wasn't it?
I mean, it was an absolutely beautiful strike, Cammy.
It was lovely. It's funny because as you chaps were talking about the Aberdeen goal, I was about to criticise Bijrami for this, because if you watch that sequence of play again, Bijrami's sauntering back, and it could very much easily have been helping out the defence at this point. Hadji wins this ball, plays a great ball over the top to Dessers, and still follows in the attack. And as you say, Davey, I mean, we were definitely past the 95-minute mark at this point, because at first I thought the minute Dessers hit the post, obviously I was doing the same exclamations as yourself and Alan and everyone listening to this. And I thought the minute it hits the post, I thought if this goes to an Aberdeen player, it's done, because he'll just blow. But fortunately, it does find its way out. And Hadji's now falling back in. And if you watch Hadji again, he's screaming for the ball from Jeffy. He wants to get that shot away. And the technique is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But he's fallen up on it. He's not had the greatest of seasons, I think it's fair to say. He's obviously missed out a good portion of it. At the beginning of the season, he's come in. I think he's shown some great promise. But for him, again, we talk back to how much do the players want it? How much can players see this as an opportunity to be able to get into it? Because I know you'll have been frustrated not featuring as much and not getting as many starts as you would have liked. But listen, this is a great finish. It's a great build-up to the goal. Dessers is very, very unlucky. However, and I will caveat that slightly, the ball couldn't sit more perfectly for him to hit it. He needs to be able to get that, he needs to be able to at least force the save rather than going as close to the post as he did, but I'll forgive it. But the finish is just absolutely exquisite. I was, as I say, I was stunned that we were able to get as much time as we did. And suppose if I was an Aberdeen fan at this point, that would be what I was arguing more about rather than the penalty. But yeah, listen, what a great finish to the game. And I know people criticise it's up at Pittodrie and it's a 2-2 draw and we've got bigger fish to fry and all the rest of it. But I'd much rather be able to salvage a point from 2 goals down and a man down, and been able to give a wee bit of an uplift to the squad rather than coming back down the road with our head in our hands,
No, I definitely agree with that. And so that ends the trip to Pittodrie. And now we look ahead to Thursday night in Bilbao. Now, Alan, we will be up against it. There is zero doubt about that. They're a good side. They'll be confident of finishing the job. However, Rangers have shown, particularly away in Europe this season, that we can dig out these types of performances. I think we'll be boosted by the fact that Diamandi is back, because I think he saves his best for these matches. And I thought that if I was being picky, because look, when you play 90 minutes, because the game went on 102 minutes, 90 minutes with 10 men against a side from La Liga, the top end of La Liga, and get a draw, it's a good result. But being greedy, I thought there were a few occasions we might have broken and we didn't do it well enough. And the small chance of doing so was lost, because I don't think Dessers or Czerny were on it. But Diamandi being back helps that, because he can rotate quickly with the ball. He can take the ball in a half turn, spin and go. So I no objection at all to Bilbao being the favourites. That's common sense. However, I'm certainly not dreading it, to put it that way.
No, and because of the way we've been, obviously in Europe anyway, we are, I mean, we can be shocking it domestically, but we do seem to have this ability to keep it tight, keep it tight and counter really, really well. So as you said, I would probably put it 20% chance, David, purely because it's at their ground, with their crowd, the atmosphere and so on. But again, if Rangers can do, as we have done in numerous other kind of European, well, this season in particular, but we've done it before, I think we know the playbook, don't we? And I suppose we had it even before Barry Ferguson came in, but this sits with the whole Walter playbook as well, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. We think, oh my goodness, we've drawn it home, we had to. But no, and if they get frustrated and they do push up, there will be chances for us. And the key then will be, we really need to make sure that we take them. If we can get through as well, we're talking about something like 3.5 million to get in as a semi-finalist. There's obviously the gate receipts for that too. And then going on from there, it's 5.9, another 5 and so on. So there's the money as well. But there's also this Rangers brand as well in terms of across Europe. So things like this are really important to us. Bread and butter, ultimately, when the takeover comes in, we must win domestically. That's a priority. But for us to get something, and again, David, it's a one-off. And if we can't expend all the energy and put everything in here, then something's wrong. So I'm probably a 20% kind of guy on it. But it's Rangers and it's Europe, and we'll get chances.
Yeah, and Cammy, as Alan says, with no game this weekend, realistically not many meaningful games domestically anyway this season. Go out there and just completely empty a tank, chuck everything you've got into it.
Yeah, 100%. I know you were mentioning about Diamandi there, David, as well, but I'll be glad to have John Suter back as well, because we'll need to be certainly far more organised than we've seen recently. So alongside Suter, if I know the manager alluded that he was hoping to be able to get some good news, and I think he said 3 or 4 players Monday, Tuesday. My hope is that one of them is Czerny, who obviously didn't play at the weekend, so he can make the difference for us. I think that you saw last Thursday he wasn't quite match fit, and we'd want to see a wee bit more from him. It wouldn't surprise me, genuinely wouldn't surprise me if we have to do a bit of siege defending and then some obscure chance does fall to Cyril Dessers and you see him put it away. But you're right, empty the tank has to be the motto. The game is massive, right? There's no doubt around that. I know Alan's obviously mentioned the financial rewards there as well, and obviously what it does for us from a reputation perspective. But even just for the fans, in terms of what's been a dismal domestic season, I think I'm not alone in saying this, but I think sometimes we feel like we've maybe punched a wee bit above our weight in terms of being able to get this far with this squad, and we are playing against top tier opposition. There's absolutely no doubt around that. They got a 3-1 win on Sunday, so they'll be buoyed by that. But as you say, they rested plenty of players and they were still able to come away with a result. I think they were actually losing that game and came back and won it. The most important thing we have to do is go out with some belief. It'll be hard work and it'll take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of energy. But those things for me are basics. what we need to be able to do is instill some belief into that squad that we're capable of getting to the Europa League semi-final. And if we can do that, and it's Thursday night Rangers, then who knows what can happen. But yeah, it'll be an interesting game for sure. And I think as long as we can go out with some positivity, the manager's mentioned character a lot, and I think whether we like to admit it or not, because I know results haven't been fantastic, and we're dishing out leads left, right, and centre at the moment. But if we can go out with a bit of character and a bit of belief, then I think we've definitely got a fighting chance.
Well, hopefully. Anyway, Cam will be back later in the week with Heart and Hand Extra. I'll be back next week on Heart and Hand. And in the meantime, for all the build-up and then coverage of the match in Bilbao, go to patreon.com/Heart and Hand. My thanks to our producers, Mike Lee and Paul Myers. And my thanks to my two guests today. First of all, Alan Bradley.
Thanks, David. Yeah, once again, just enjoyed being on the flagship with yourself and Cammy. So really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thank you. And to Cammy.
A pleasure both. Thank you.
Speak to you again soon, folks. All roads lead to Bilbao. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.